Welcome to the Downtown Studio Midlands in Focus, where we get to shine a spotlight on creators in the West Texas area. I'm Mike, and this is my beautiful wife, Steph.
Hello, everybody.
And today we have special guest, Auden Cabello. Auden, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So let's get talking about some photography stuff.
Let's talk photography.
Let's talk photography. Okay, so I know we talked the other day, and you kind of told me your story, and I thought it was really cool. So tell us again how you got started in all of this.
Well, first of all, I want to start by congratulating both of you. I've been using your studio, your new studio. I met you during an open house at your previous studio, and I've been using this one, and I love it. You guys have done a great job with it, and now I plan to continue using it. So, and now we're here doing a podcast, so it's great. So I wanted to congratulate you for that. And then as far as me, how I started, I want to say it was around when I was 12 years old. My dad bought me a camera. Back then it was film. Mm-hmm. So during the summer break, so I'm from Fort Stockton originally, and during summer break, they would take us to Mexico, visit family. And so this camera, that's where I would take it to Mexico. And then prior to going, I would get the film, the Kodak film, at Walmart, Kmart back then.
Kmart.
I don't think Walmart existed back then. It had to have been Kmart. So I'd get the film and would go to Mexico, and I'd take just random photos of daily life in Mexico over there. We'd come back, had those developed at Kmart. And then after that, he got me a camcorder. So I would use that to film just family events. And after that, I mean, just life happened. I grew up. I really didn't pursue photography or anything like that until, I would say, probably like 15 years ago, maybe. So I used to work at Radio Shack, and there they would issue us all the new phones that were about to come out to test them out. And I was all about Android. That's when Google had developed their own software, Android, and would get all the cool new gadgets coming out. The best one at the time, I think, was called the Hero. Mm. It was a big phone. I think it was the one that, made a lot of news because of its size. It was one of the biggest phones to date. And so then they gradually started coming out with new phones, and there was a lot of pressure on the iPhone that it was too small. And eventually they made, I think it was iPhone 6 or iPhone 7 when they made the screen larger. And that's when I decided to go over to the iPhone and test it out. And so I got it. And at the time, that's when Instagram was a photo app and was barely taking off. Mm-hmm. And that's how I started. Instagram, taking photos, kind of learning the editing part, everything on the iPhone. And then I started making videos of just family, my girlfriend. And then there was an interest. A friend started asking, he's like, can you make me a video? I'm like, it's just on my iPhone. He's like, yeah, but it's like for my birthday, kind of like you did for your girlfriend. I'm like, okay, I'll try it out. So gradually I got more into photo and video, but everything was on the iPhone. And then I decided to buy a camera, Canon. It was a Canon, was it T2i, I believe.
Okay.
With the 50 millimeter lens and the flash. I got it for like $200. It was used. Yeah. And so I started, playing with that one, learning all the settings and all the features. And so at work, at the time, I was a warehouse manager there in Del Rio, and my boss approaches me. He's like, hey, I hear you do videos. I'm like, yeah, but, just for me and family. He's like, well, he said, my parents' 50th anniversary is coming up. He says, but I don't believe in professional photographers. I'm not going to hire anybody. He says, the last time I hired one, it was for my daughter's quinceañera, and she's already going to graduate college, and I still haven't received the photos or the video. I said, so I'm done with professional photographers. I said, so I just want something, whatever you can capture just for my parents' 50th anniversary. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. It's like, just do whatever you can. I'll pay you $300. I'm like, okay. So I went out, I recorded it, and they loved it. I had no idea what I was doing. I had to look everything up on how to, edit the video, because it was more of a longer format than what I usually used to do. About a minute, 2 minutes. This one was about 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And so from there, they started referring me to other people, friends of theirs, and it just became like a side hustle because I had my regular job. So then, as time passes, that one is gradually growing. There's more demand for video, and that's really where I started. I think my strength is video. I focus more on video, and so I started investing in more gear, and then that's when I made the switch over from Canon to Sony because of the low light, especially like in events. They dim the lights and it's kind of dark, and I realized the Canon was needed a lot of light, and I just learned that from experience and watching YouTube videos. So I'm saying, okay, jump over to Sony, and I saw the big difference right away. And to date, I just got my 6th camera, all Sony. And that's what I do, is mainly events, weddings, quinceañeras. But going back to how it all started or how I grew, it got to the point at work where I had so much work with events and the editing that I got to the point where I couldn't manage both my full-time job and the editing. And so just talking with my wife, I told her, I'm making more on weekends than my regular job. And so I finally decided to go all in, created my LLC, and that's when I really got into, investing in more gear. And that's the best advice I got at the time was, and it applies to everything. It's like, it is your business, for it to be successful. And I got it from one of my pastors there in Acuña. He said, it's not going to be the gear, or because he says there's a lot of photographers, there's a lot of videographers. So what makes you stand out is you and the quality of service that you provide. I said people are not going to look for anybody else once they realize who you are and what type of service you can offer. And to this date, I think yes, we can do marketing, but the clients you have, you establish those relationships with them. And once you get to know them, that provides an insight on how to provide better, whether it's photo or video. And from there, they refer you to others. And to this date, that's what's kept me going, just referrals, word of mouth. And that's what's helped me in the long run. And so I guess the biggest leap was when I decide to leave my full-time job and go all into events. That's when the border crisis kicks off. Because at the time I was living in Acuña. From Del Rio. I had married my wife, who was a Mexican national. I was trying to get her, legalized, get her into the country. But in the meantime, I had to go live on the Mexican side. And that's when the border crisis kicks off, right when I had left my full-time job. So I started using my gear to document what I was witnessing. And so at the time, I didn't know anybody in the media, any reporters, anybody. So I just started sharing my content on social media. And eventually it became national news with the migrants. And that's when a lot of reporters spotted me, that I was the one catching everything on the Mexican side and had a lot of footage. And it started by them using my footage. And that grew into for them wanting to hear directly from me. It's like, well, what are you seeing down there that we don't see on the U.S. side? And so I just doing interviews and sharing my story of what I was witnessing. That also gave me a platform.
Yeah.
Where one, I could share my photography and videography, which led me into photojournalism. And it also helped me learn once I got to meet a lot of the professional photojournalists from like Reuters, New York Times, all the big papers, working with them, learning from them, and all the cameramen from all the big networks, Fox News and others. I've kind of, whatever I could take from them, kind of implemented into my style of doing events, whether it's the weddings or quinceañeras.
So when you were doing this documenting, was it a lot of handheld? Were you using drones? What all were you using down there to document what was going on?
So I think that's the biggest thing that made me stand out was the drone.
Okay.
So when the drones, because I'm kind of like a tech guy, I like learning and experimenting. So DJI comes out with drones, and the first one I got was the DJI Spark. It was one of the smaller ones.
Mm-hmm.
And that one I would use to, in Acuña, in Del Rio, there's a lake. So I'd go out to the lake and the Rio Grande River. And that's what I would capture, the sunsets with the drone. And as a matter of fact, that's how I started witnessing people crossing the river by using the drone. Those were the first images. I'm like, who are these people? Why are they crossing? So I just started documenting, and eventually that led to, the Haitians, which made national news, that were crossing. I was the one who got that all on the drone. And at the time, when reporters would go down, drones weren't that big. And so what happened is law enforcement, whether it was Border Patrol or Governor Abbott with Texas DPS, they kind of limited where reporters could go.
Mm-hmm.
So the only access you could have is with the drone, kind of get an aerial view of what was happening. And me being on the Mexican side, I had the advantage of talking to the migrants prior to them crossing, and then also with the drone once they had crossed. And that helped me stand out a lot. And that's why, reporters were kind of trying to get the coverage from me, the footage, whether it was the drones or whether it was information, knowledge, like what are you seeing over there that we don't see over here? And the drone, I think that's what helped me a lot.
Set you apart.
It set me apart. And here now everybody has a drone. All the reporters, they show up to the whether it's to the river, the border, or anything that they're covering. Now they have their camera, they have a drone. So the demand is out there, because you can't just go out there and take photos. Even the photojournalists that they're dedicated to just taking photos, a lot of them have a action camera or their phone mounted on the camera because they want to get that video also. Especially breaking news, you want to get video, not just photo.
Mm-hmm.
So were you doing a lot of this from the Mexican side or the U.S. side?
I was doing all of it on the Mexican side.
Did you find it was easier, like less restricted on the Mexican side than on the U.S. side?
Yeah, that's what helped me stand out a lot, because there's a lot of restrictions on the U.S. side as far as where you could go. In part because the Biden administration had a gag order like on Border Patrol,
mm-hmm.
where they're trying to keep everything hush. And so they would limit where reporters could go, saying, no, this is private property or this is federal property. You can't be here. So they couldn't really capture everything. And once the migrants cross and turn themselves into Border Patrol, they're considered in custody. So you can't go and talk to them, interview them. And I was doing all that on the Mexican side. So that's the first thing I would do, is talk to them. Where you come. That was my first question, is like, where are you from? How'd you get here? How was your journey? And I would interview them. I would walk with them and then get footage of when they're crossing the river. And then that's when I would get the drone up and just follow them
mm-hmm.
when they turn themselves into Border Patrol, or even when they were, escorted out on the bus. So I would get like the whole process. And reporters on the U.S. side, they would just get the latter part.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also why it encouraged me to get into it, because I would watch the news and I would realize they're missing
like 90%
of the story. So I started, okay, I'm going to go on social media and just post. And that's how they started reaching out to me.
Did you have journalists kind of in bed with you, knowing that you had a better side or more of a story?
So the first one that I met, and to this day we're still friends, we're still staying in contact, is Bill Malusian from Fox News.
Okay.
I had documented a group of about, I want to say like 200 Haitians in Acuña when they arrived on bus. And I followed them to the crossing point, and then I got the drone up and, got them crossing the river. And on that occasion, I said, I'm going to go to Del Rio and get the U.S. side when they're already crossed, kind of get the complete story. And so when I show up to the location, there's a camera guy, a reporter, and when I get there, the producer gets out of the vehicle. And he asked me, what network are you with? I'm like, I'm just the local, just trying to, because I got this group on the Mexican side, I'm just trying to get them here on the U.S. side. He's like, what did you get? And can I see it? So I show him the drone footage. He's like, oh, I need that. And then that's when he introduced himself. He's from Fox News and introduced me to Bill Malusian. And so I became kind of like the first contact that I was providing footage to them. And they were buying it from me, which today I think they're the network that pays best for footage. And I think that's where other reporters started reaching out. And very few would actually go into Mexico. So they'd reach out and tell me, call me, it's like, can you guide us to the crossing spot? And there's a lot of breaking stories that I helped them get.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool, man.
So did you do any photos while you were there, or mostly just video?
Mostly video,
Yeah.
because that's really what sells, and also for social media. But I did take some photos of the Haitians mainly, and then the crossing stopped there in Acuña and Del Rio, and it transferred over to Eagle Pass, Piedras Negras. And so that's when I started really doing even more work. By then, I was already pretty much known by a lot of reporters, even politicians. At the time, when Elon Musk visited Eagle Pass, his people tried to reach out to me and try to connect them, but he was like on a very short schedule. But he did see my videos. He shared one of them, which I think to date has, I don't know how many million views on X.
That's cool.
And then after that, Vivek Ramaswamy, who was running for president, he visited Eagle Pass, and with his team, they did reach out and they hired me to kind of guide them and show them everything. And the videos are out there as well. And I mean, other politicians like Tom Homan, who's the current border czar, and Rodney Scott, he was a border patrol chief, and he's currently the CBP commissioner. So a lot of them that I work with at the border, they're currently working for the Trump administration. And then, of course, the reporters, they're still out there, whether it's Fox News, News Nation, and other networks, Univision, Telemundo. So that was another part that, being bilingual, I was able to do interviews in English and Spanish. And you get to see kind of both sides, the political angle.
Yeah.
If they were leaning left.
What questions are being asked based on?
If they were kind of leaning left and, they kind of didn't like what I was telling them, they cut me off.
So, from what I understand, you captured something, a Border Patrol agent on a horseback, right? And there was a lot of pushback from people saying this Border Patrol agent was whipping people. But you got a different side of that, right?
I got the real story.
Well, tell us about that, because I think that's kind of cool.
Well, yeah, so that's also at the time when we had the Haitians, the 15,000 Haitians encamped underneath the international bridge. And so at the time, there's when they were crossing, there's like a dam there at the Rio Grande River, and that's where they were using it to walk. And I just so happened that when I first noticed them is I was in Del Rio, and for some reason I had to go back to Acuña on the Mexican side, and I always carried the drone with me. And so when I'm driving back and I look over, I'm over the bridge over the Rio Grande River, and I look over to my right, that's when I see a whole line of people. So usually it was groups, and they would cross, and if you weren't there, you pretty much miss it. But this time the line was there, and it just kept going. So I'm like, what's going on down there? So as soon as I crossed, I go park and get my drone up. And when I get there, I mean, there's Haitians on the Mexican side that are still not crossing yet. And so I get the drone up, and then I follow the line, and it's, you know, they're crossing the Rio Grande River, and it goes, and then it's going underneath the international bridge, and there's already a group already gathering. So it was like the initial, when they had all had gotten there. And so right away I get that footage and put it up on social media, and it kind of just blows up, and journalists started sharing it, and there comes everybody. And that's when it became national news. So the first time when I mentioned that I met Bill Belusion, they were crossing a little bit more upriver, and then that kind of got blocked, and the numbers increased, so they moved closer to the international bridge, and that's when they were using that dam to walk. It's pretty much like a sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And so it got so big that they shut that down. And so being familiar with the area, I realized the next crossing point for them is going to be on the other side, which on the Mexican side, it's a park. There's soccer fields. And so I get up early that morning, and I go to the other side, and sure enough, they're already crossing. And as soon as I put videos up, there goes all the reporters. And some were already watching me because they knew I was local and I knew everything was happening. And so right away they said, "Yeah, I saw your video." So they showed up, and that's why I'm here. And so it got to the point where they're just going back and forth because they were stationed underneath. They were encamped underneath the international bridge. So they would go to Acuña, get food, water, and then come back. So they're going back and forth. And so on one occasion, Border Patrol brings out the horses. And so I thought it was pretty cool, right? So I started filming them on horseback. They were just patrolling there and watching the migrants where they're crossing at the river and then back to the international bridge. And so on one of those, they kind of rounded them up kind of like cattle. And so I follow the horses to the international bridge as they're going. And then when I'm flying the drone back, that's when the incident happened. And it was the last of the Haitians, because they had blocked that area as well. So they had told them, if you're not back by 1, you're going to be stuck in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So these were the last ones that were crossing with food. And so I'm flying the drone and I'm getting all this. And so the photo that went viral is reporters that were in the river, and it's the Haitians with the food and Border Patrol telling them, it's already past the cutoff time. We warned you, go back to Mexico. And they didn't listen. They kept insisting. So that's when one of the Border Patrol agents leans over and grabs one of the Haitians. But you can see the reins kind of hanging, the horse mm-hmm. reins. And that's when it was interpreted that they're whipping the Haitians. And that photo went viral. Politicians got involved, saying, they started an investigation right away. And once I shared my video saying there's no whipping, here's the whole context. Border Patrol went out and said, they announced it in loudspeakers, at 1:00, we're cutting off you going back and forth to Mexico. That's it, no more. Because there's still people arriving, Haitians were still arriving and joining in. So they had already cut off one side of the river, and that's how they went to the other side. And so now they did the same thing, like we got to cut it off, no more crossing, and get these people cleared out. So because they had shut down the international bridge for a week. And so locals were already complaining because everybody goes back and forth, whether it's work or, mm-hmm. For your doctor's appointment or whatever, commerce. And the bridge was already shut down, but they had to clear out everybody. So in order to clear it out, they had to first stop the Haitians from going back and forth. And so they had announced, it's like 1:00, we're shutting it down. Make sure you're back. And so that's the whole context of everything. And so these were like the last Haitians, and they were trying to tell them, it's like, no, it's already past the cutoff time, go back to Acuña, and they didn't listen. They kept on going. And so when they started the investigation, the Border Patrol, I guess like the investigation department, called me, and they asked me for the footage. So I started going on networks, because the whole story was that Border Patrol was whipping the migrants, the Haitians. And once my footage got out, they started reaching out to me. It's like, what's really happening? Can you explain? And I showed them, like, there's a video. There's no whipping taking place. And eventually, Border Patrol agents got I guess the exonerated, and my footage was the main reason why, because it provided the complete context.
Yeah.
And
That's fantastic.
and so going back to the different networks, Univision had called me for an interview, so I could explain that scenario. And when I started telling them like there's no whipping, they just cut me off. It's like, we have to go to commercial, because it didn't, it didn't align with their narrative.
Yeah.
But that's how I started learning, the different networks, the different agendas that they have.
That's really cool, man. I think that's, journalism at its finest. Like, you're capturing the whole story. You're not leaning one way or the other. You're just out there to tell the story how it happened, not trying to use it for political purposes. I like that.
So, like, now that you do both, obviously, how do you use both? Like, when you're doing not photojournalism anymore, because I guess we're, in a sense, when you're doing these events, quinceañeras and weddings, you're still telling the story, but how do you use photo and video to do that? I mean, obviously video can tell the longer story, but what's your goal when you're doing the photos?
So I always go back to what I learned there at doing my photojournalism, because I would see both photographers, which they're trying to capture the whole story with photos, and then the reporters, of course, they're explaining what they're seeing and using video or B-roll to support what they're reporting on. And that's one of the things that I learned a lot just from the networks, that they're all biased and they have their, whether they lean left or right and politically. One of the things that I learned is to just show the facts and let the public interpret it as they wished. And so a lot of the footage that I captured is not like you see today, the influencers where they it's all about themselves and they want to be on camera. And you still have a lot of reporters that do that. They want to be on camera. It's all about them. Look at me. Look at where I'm at. Look at what I'm doing. Me, I was all about showing the facts. And in the videos, like, you don't even see me, or a lot of times I wouldn't even talk or narrate what I'm seeing. I'm just filming and share it to social media and just put a little bit of context where I'm at, what's going on. And that's how networks reach out. Like, we saw your footage, it got a lot of views. Can you explain what was happening? And so just learning from, I think I learned more from the photojournalist, because they're trying to tell the whole story with just photos. And so what I learned from them and how I apply it to the events is that there's a story, right? If you go to a wedding, you go and you see the decorations, you see the bride and the groom. But I learned this from a director. He said, there's always a story behind the story. And that stuck with me. So a lot of reporters that went down to the border, they would just cover, a lot of the networks, they were covering the same thing, because they were just covering the main story. And so me being on the Mexican side, I'm like, no, there's a story behind the story. Like, who are these migrants? Where are they coming from? Why they picked this border town? And so that led me to go further down into like central Mexico or southern Mexico, into Tapachula, which is ground zero where all the migrants are, just to learn like the backstory, to understand what was really happening at the border and what was happening inside the country, what was still living those consequences to this date. And so same thing, if you apply it to weddings or quinceañeras, it's like, what's the story behind the story? It's not just a celebration. Like, who is the quinceañera? That's a human. Like, what's her story? What's her parents' story? So I try to capture that, whether it's through photo or video. I try to get that kind of backstory so people can see a little bit more behind, who they are. And like during the events, I have five cameras. Kind of also learned that from the networks where they use multiple cameras, and you look at the networks or any TV show, you realize they're switching up camera angles. So I try to implement that, and that's how I use it. But as I'm doing that, I'm also watching what's going on that people like randomly see. behind, you know, people, there might be a kid, you know, playing something, or a couple, they don't want to dance on the main floor, but there's, you know, in the corner dancing. And I'm just watching for those kind of things, and I go over there and film them or take a photo of them. And I've had several clients like, I'm surprised you got that. I'm glad you got it. That means so much to me. You know, maybe I captured a grandparent who by then had passed away. That photo just became so much more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of things that, you know, I'm always looking for, of, you know, who's who. It's not only like the story behind the story, but knowing who's who. And so you learn that from talking to them. And I usually ask, like, is there any special guests you're going to have? And a lot of times they'll tell me, like, yeah, it's my grandparent or my stepdad or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something meaningful to them. And so I try to capture their emotions. Throughout the night, I'll have an eye out for them and see whether, you know, they might be crying, they might be laughing, having a good time. So I try to capture that and incorporate it into the video. So
kind of going back to when you were working 2 jobs, which seems like the norm for most all the photographers out here, is this is all part-time. What was that like, you know, going, all right, we're taking this on full time? Was it scary? Was it unknown? Were you ready? Would you feel ready? Is it something you maybe just don't feel ready and just got to do it? How was that transition?
It was stressful. Actually, my hair's thinning. I've got a bald spot, and I think it goes back to that time when I decided to leave my full-time job, because again, that's something that you can depend on. You know, you get that paycheck every whatever weekly net. It's a safety net. So just imagine that safety net being gone, and you're like, oh, it's all me now.
Yeah.
And so there was some uncertainty, some stress, and but then you go back and then you realize, you know, I got the potential to do it, and you look at others and compare yourself, and I'm like, I think I can do it. And it's a risk, but then there's got to be a foundation. And so for me, like I said, video was my foundation. And so with the border crisis kicking off, that kind of led me to also get back into photography. And then we also had the pandemic, when, you know, events were pretty much shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got more into photography. And that's how I managed to do both. And that's what's really helped me. So when events are down with videography, photography kind of fills in the gap,
mm-hmm.
or vice versa. And there's times when both are busy, like I'm currently right now, and there's a lot of editing going on, that's another part, which, you know, happens, things that some of those tasks that happen behind the scenes that a lot of the people don't see, but there's a lot of editing, whether it's video or photos.
Are you doing all the editing for photo and video yourself, or do you kind of use automated systems where you can, or do you like kind of like ship it out, I guess, to certain people to do?
So with the video, I have a editor.
Okay.
For the long, because on videos, I offer 2 formats: the highlights and the traditional video, which has helped me a lot, especially with like the Hispanic culture. They like more of the traditional video, which is about 4 or 5 hours of video for the event. And they usually tell me, they come back and tell me it's like a whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my whole goal is to document the whole day. And I tell them, it's like, the celebration is not just at night during the reception. It's a whole day. So enjoy it, because I'll be filming you from the morning, from the hair and makeup as they're getting ready, and the ceremony, and then the reception. And I stay until the event ends. So that just gives me more material to produce a good quality video for them. And so this longer format, that one, I've been able to find an editor, so she takes care of that. On the highlights video, it's sometimes, so depending. If I capture something that I have a gut feeling that's good and,
mm-hmm.
and you know, it's gonna take off, that's gonna help me on social media, I'll edit it, whether it's a teaser or the highlights, and share it right away. the photos, I prefer to do my editing. That's one part that I really enjoy. Editing, it's almost like it's an art for me, and it's also it's almost like a stress reliever. Just,
therapeutic.
just be therapeutic. Yeah, just be there, editing, and getting all the stray hairs and all the blemishes. Really zooming in and all the fine details. I like doing that.
It absolutely is therapeutic sometimes. And,
it is,
and sometimes it's really time consuming.
You go down the editing hole,
Oh yeah,
the rabbit hole.
yeah.
So how much editing is too much editing? Would you say on a photo?
Too much. So my style is keeping it realistic. Too much editing is when that realism is gone. Whether it's a person, the real person, and the photo is just like
night and day. Too much.
Yeah. And there's clients that will ask for more, and I'll tell them like that's my style. And then there's some that say, that's too much. Take off. I'll take off. They want it more realistic, especially like. So I had this one client with freckles, and so I took, I guess, too many freckles off, and she wanted her freckles back, so put them back. It's what the client requests. Yeah. So
yeah. Do you tend to? I guess depending on what you're shooting, depends on your editing. Like for instance, like obviously if you're doing a headshot, there's a little bit more versus if we're doing like a wedding, or if we're doing maybe based on age, if it's older, are we doing a lot more editing if they're older, or are we just kind of leaving the wisdom lines there?
Yeah, so it does matter. So like headshots or anything up close where you see more of the fine detail, there is more fine editing because you can see more of it. On the events, I focus more like on the composition and the lighting, with the exposure, because a lot of the venues, the lighting is terrible. I think that's a big challenge we all have, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes lighting is not enough, so you kind of have to blow up a little bit, increase the exposure.
They have, like, terrible colors on the
or
walls.
the colors. That's So that's my main focus on events, and so there's photos that happen like during the reception where they're dancing, and where I would say quality is not like the main issue. It's more about capturing the moment. And so I always advise my clients to set aside and schedule a time for photos, family photos, where I said you paid for the decoration. Like use the decoration as a backdrop and schedule photos with all the family and friends. When they're still there, sober and clean. I said those are gonna be the best photos that you continually use year after year, whether it's for birthdays or whatever. I said the rest is just to remember the night during the reception. Yeah.
The emotions.
Yeah. So we were talking once before, and you had mentioned about when you're capturing photos, and it was a discussion over like locations and people wanting locations, but you had made the comment basically it's about you, like you the client. That's what we need to focus on. Remember that?
Yeah. So I prefer studio photography because to me the photo is to capture the individual, the subject. They're the whole focus. And so there's clients that say, well, we want a picture, at the river or a sunset or such and such location. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I said, but like to me, the main focus is you. I said, because, and it's happened to me. We've gone to a location, we take a photo, and once you share it on social media, you see the comments, or they'll reach out to me. It's like, hey, where was that location? And so the whole focus becomes the location, and they lose focus of the individual. And the whole purpose is the individual. And that happens a lot with like the quinceañeras, or, I recommend it to them. It's like, use a simple location. Don't go too much on location, because then the quinceañera gets lost. And same thing happens during the night, during the reception. The whole entire day should be the quinceañera, the whole focus centered around her. And we've kind of shifted away from that. So like in the Hispanic culture, they go and hire big bands or, you know, a lot of entertainment, and the quinceañera gets lost in all that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people show up to go watch the bands. It becomes like a free concert, and the quinceañera's completely lost in all the crowd when the whole focus should have been her. So same thing happens in photography. You go out and get a real nice location, and the whole focus will be on the location, and we lose sight of the main subject, which is the quinceañera or the couple.
I feel like we've been victim to that, where we're just like stressing over, well, we're going to go do the shoot. Oh, we got to do it. Like, where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? And it's like,
Everybody always wants water. Like, we're in West Texas.
yeah. And it's just like, you should be focusing on the person.
The person.
What are we taking photos of? Yeah.
Your features.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so now I've made it to the point where my priority is to take photos in studio. And if they want location, I tell them, you pick the location. Wherever you want to go, I'll go. And then usually they'll come back and ask me, like, was there something you recommend? I'm like, well, here's some where I've used. I was like, but, you know, and I explained that whole thing to them.
When you explain that to the clients, do that kind of open their eyes of, oh, and then they kind of get less on where they don't, I guess they care less about where it's at now and go along with, okay, like, I'm the focus.
Yeah. Yeah, once I explain it to them, or especially like if they want to show off the dress. I mean, it's either going to be the dress, the quinceañera, her hair, or the location. And yeah, I mean, you can use all three and kind of where it's complementary, right? But a lot of focus, it's on one or the other. It's either the location and, you know, the dress gets lost in it, or even the quinceañera.
So if they do leave it to you and say, you know, Auden, you pick the location, how are you picking location? Are you doing it off of what they're wearing? Are you doing off of what they're like, what complements the shoot kind of in a way? Or?
Yeah, so I ask them if, the dress colors, the style and the theme kind of looks something that will complement that. So here mostly everybody's kind of Western.
Yeah.
Yeah, our dress up isn't very dressed up.
Yeah.
It's like the West Texas tuxedo, which is like starched jeans and boots and a button
they're
down and a
dancing
sports
boots.
coat. Yeah. No, that's really interesting, and I like what you said about that, because I feel like we tend to lose focus on, hey, we're here to photograph you or this, you know, milestone or this event, versus we're here to focus this venue, or we're here to photograph this venue or this location. And yeah, it's like so easy. Like I said, we've fallen victim to that all the time. We stress too much about where we're gonna go.
And that's also something that I learned down at the border is just focusing on the migrants, because a lot of reporters would focus on other things. I'm like, the whole story is them, and if you talk to them, they'll tell you, you know, all the backstory. I'm just sharing what I'm hearing directly from them, and so it's kind of like I said, I apply all that to how I do events with weddings and quinceañeras.
So do you feel, kind of coming from this photojournalism background, do you feel that your style is more like photojournalistic, where I'm telling the story, or I'm more creating art, or a mixture?
I think it's more of sharing a story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Creating art, I think that's where maybe like landscape would come in, not so much with people.
Yeah. Well, you can, I mean, sometimes
you can.
You have like those stylistic shoots where it's like, we're going to kind of create art with this, and versus, you know, I want to tell the story of this person. So, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole genre of
yeah.
photography, you know, the creative aspect. And I think also the subject kind of gets lost in that because you're focusing either on the lighting or, you know, shadows or whatever style you're going after, or art. I mean, there's that, but it's not my style.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So you mentioned landscapes. Was that something early on that you started to do? Just landscapes, or just you were just out there and didn't have anything else to shoot?
Yeah, so I think that we all go through that transition where we're just kind of experimenting, and we're going through all types of photography, whether it's landscape, night photography,
Product.
We go into a little bit of everything, kind of try it out. But I think I was all about, there at the border with the lake and the river, and we get beautiful sunsets over there. Here, they're rare. I got one, what was it, yesterday, day before, for my sister's birthday shoot. She'll probably be sharing them here soon. But here it's rare. I told her, I said, hopefully we get one. But over there it's very common, real nice colors. So, I would go out and capture that. And I still enjoy landscape. So it's kind of like where I would use the aerial with the drone, and then also camera, get time lapses, and kind of just experiment with different styles of photography.
So you have this one, Steph, you see it right here. So you have this one, and this is what, Lake Amistad?
Lake Amistad in Del Rio.
In Del Rio. So this one here, very nice. I obviously drone, you weren't that high. So were you just like, how did you come across this? Were you just there that day? Or were you just kind of saying, what do I got?
Yeah, so I would go out to the lake and just take the family with me, and in the evenings, and just wait for sunset, take the drone and just fly it. And so the 50th anniversary was coming up for Lake Amistad when it was constructed. So I figured I'd go out there and get video, and I shared it on social media, and I think it's on my YouTube channel too. Just put some music, kind of create something cinematic of the lake. And while I was up there flying, getting footage, I took some photos. And the photo you're referring to is one of them. And while my main focus was to get the video, that photo, when I shared it, just took off on social media. And to this date, it still gets shared. So any articles, any stories that come up regarding Lake Amistad or Acuña del Rio, they'll use that photo. Politicians during the campaign, they'll use it. I've gone back to Acuña and I see that photo plastered, down the main street.
How does that make you feel? Are you proud of this photo?
I am. Being recognized that, I'm the photographer behind that photo. It's a booster. It encourages you to go out and capture more. And I think that's the power of social media.
Oh yeah, when you see your photo get 100 likes, break 1,000 likes, it's like, oh man, I want to keep doing this. It's like you're chasing that high again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, it motivates you to keep going. And, when we relocated here in Midland, we went to the Christmas lighting event here at Centennial Park. And on that occasion, I told my wife, I always have my camera with me on public events, just capture whatever's going on. And I told my wife, you know what? I'm not taking any cameras. I'm just going to enjoy the lights and enjoy the kids. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the drone just in case.
Yeah.
But no cameras. And so we're already leaving. We're in the car. And I said, hold on, let me take a quick picture before we leave. So I'll get the drone up, take a photo of the Centennial Park, just that one photo. And I shared that on my Facebook. And then the city of Midland reaches out. It's like, can we use your photo? Can we license it? I said, no, you don't have to license it. You have my permission to use it. Go ahead. And so now I see that photo being used for marketing from the city of Midland. The mayor used it. And I've seen it in newsletters. And it's just one of those things, like I said, that not everything's about money. Not everything's about, sometimes it's just about capturing the moment and sharing it and let other people see what you saw.
Yeah.
Very
That's
cool.
great.
Very cool.
So does this, for your picture of Lake Amistad and the dam, did they license that at all, or you just kind of like, hey, take it?
They didn't, but I did have to talk to one business owner because he started using the photo on merchandise, on souvenirs, and selling them, and he didn't tell me about it. It was a friend who had bought a cup and sent it to me. He's like, hey, I got a cup with your photo. I'm like, where'd you get that? So he explained to me the whole story, and like had to sit down and talk to him. It's like, I don't mind. It's like, but you can't
Yeah.
You gotta,
can't profit off of it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So what inspires you, like, creatively? Like, what when you if you're doing something on your own, whether you're going to go to a location to take your drone, or you're saying, hey, I just want to do a shoot today, and you're not getting paid for anything, like, what's your inspiration for that? Like, what inspires you to go, and what are you going to go do?
I think the biggest thing is to capture a moment that I witnessed and share it with others so they see the same thing. So going back to how I started with the sunsets there at the border, to me they were just beautiful, and it goes back to being a believer and having studied art. I think it all points back to our Creator, God, and that's how art got started.
Mm-hmm.
If you study the history of art, the artists back then, that they were trying to, through creation, know God. And to this date, what I see in nature, whether it's a beautiful sunset, anything like that, it all points back to our Creator. And so that's the biggest thing, is capturing that and admiring his majesty and the things that we witness here on earth. And so it's not solely about the sunset. Remember, it's the story behind the story. Who's the creator of that sunset,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it kind of points all back to that. And I think that's the biggest thing, is not just the story behind the story, but also maybe the creator behind the story, or the creation that we're witnessing.
Nice. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Photographers kind of being part-time, and there's quite a few that are on the fence right now probably about wanting to jump off. And so if you had to give them some advice about transitioning in from this being part-time to this being the full thing, what would be your advice to these young photographers?
So I would say, if that's your future, if you see yourself doing that full time, prepare yourself to do it. I mean, the opportunity is there. There's a lot of demand for it, and everybody that I know of pretty much has gone into it and has made a life off of it, right? But there's a lot of pros and cons, of course, but it's completely different from having a full-time job and having that safety net that we talked about earlier, and then a lot of company benefits, that come along with having a full-time job. All that's pretty much going to be gone. Now it's going to be your responsibility. And so I think what I did, and what a lot of photographers have done, I think we've all ventured and kind of learned the hard way as we go along. That's kind of like the long way of doing it. The easy way would be to, as long as you have your full-time job, prepare yourself not only in knowing your gear and the services you're going to provide, but also in running the business side of your photography or videography. I think that's really the foundation of it, how you're going to run your business. It's not so much of going out and taking photos and charging such and such a fee and living off of that. I think that's only like the front end,
Mm-hmm.
and somewhat of the easy part. I think the hard part is the financial aspect and running the whole business, the structure, how you set it up. And anybody on the fence wanting to do it, the opportunity is there. If you're willing to become your own boss and run your own business and never stop learning. I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because there's always something to learn, whether it's, new gear, new photo style, new editing tools, or on the administrative part on how to run the business and be compliant with either local, state, and federal laws. And,
Yeah.
It's a big one.
it is.
You don't want to get in trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to get hit with any kind of liens or back taxes.
Yeah, and we kind of learn we learned that the hard way because we don't really look at that aspect.
Well, that's something that's not ever really spoken of. And then, you jump in this and you're just like, oh, I'm supposed to be paying taxes, and oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. And
exactly. And that's something you don't see. Like, most of us go to YouTube and learn a lot of photography, but rarely do they talk about, the business
the
side of it.
How to actually run the business.
Exactly.
Which, that's a whole nother beast.
Who all you have to pay to run your business.
Exactly. Or if you open a studio.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And then, the other thing I've noticed that no one ever talks about is how many hats you're going to wear, right? Business owner, and then you got to learn marketing.
Content creator.
Yeah. You got to learn marketing. You got to be a influencer to an extent. And it's like, I just want to take photos and run a studio.
You have to take photos. You have to edit.
Yeah, you have to be an editor. You have
to be editor, and then how to be customer service. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. One negative experience with the customer, and they can ruin your career on social media. So that's a big one.
Yeah, I agree.
So scaling it back, if somebody just picked up a camera, like maybe they got their first camera for birthday, Christmas, whatever it may be, what would your advice be to that person who's just getting to know like photography, like very start, doesn't know if they want to do this as a hobby or business? What would be your advice for them?
So my advice is to, first of all, learn your gear, learn your camera, learn all the features, learn how to use it, and experiment with the different styles of photography until you realize which one you fall into, what style of photography you like, and then go all into just that one. I think a lot of times we kind of spread ourselves out too much. Dedicate to one style of photography, and then get under somebody's wing. Have a mentor. That's something that, I was fortunate to learn from all these photojournalists and reporters there at the border. They weren't necessarily my mentors because I wasn't with them like full time, but I took advantage of every minute that I was with them, just learning their style and just absorbing everything like a sponge. And then learning from experts, whether it's on YouTube, any master classes that they're offering. But there's nothing, to me, what's helped me the most is not only learning the theory or the technical aspect, but the experience. Mm-hmm. Until you go out there and take photos and experiment with all the features, and then take it to the editing room, and then also experiment with that side. Until you do that, you can watch all the YouTube videos on YouTube, and you're really not going to learn anything. Theory is not the same as practice. Mm-hmm. Practice. Develop your style and go with it.
Awesome.
So how would you describe your style?
My style, I as far as like photography, I just call it, clean and crisp. I try to
clean and crisp.
Just show the person as they are. And that's why I prefer in-studio photography with the plain white backdrop, so the individual stands out.
Yeah.
And then even with videography, I keep it as simple as possible. Not too much, editing, as real as it is. Kind of just reflecting what reality is. So that's my style.
So your black and white stuff, I really like your black and white stuff. You did that, when was it? When we had the older studio, you did like a little like senior session, and then you used like the stairs, and you turned some of those into black and white. I really like that. So like, how do you determine, do you shoot with the intention of this one's going to be black and white, or when you're looking back, you're like, ooh, this would make a good one? How do you do that? Yeah,
so I try to capture, that was a graduation photo shoot. So what I talked to my client just to get a sense of, their personality. And then that's how I look for the different poses. And I usually ask them, is like, what do you like about yourself? And what don't you like about yourself? And I kind of challenge myself to capture what they don't like about themselves. Mm-hmm. And the reason so is because a lot of people, that's why they don't take photos, because there's certain features about themselves that they don't like. And it goes back to our personal identities. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the other aspect of photography that it's kind of like the philosophy of photography and our identity. You know, it reveals who we really are,
Yeah.
and you get to see yourself how other people see you. And so I try to capture that. And so that's why I ask, like, what don't you like about yourself? Because usually, oh, this is my side. And like, let me take pictures of your other side, and I'll pose them. And once they see the photos, a lot of times it turns out they liked the other side that supposedly is not their side. And they see another aspect of themselves that, you know, they were ashamed of or whatever, you know, because of their certain features.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to point out, is the real you. So you can see yourself as other people see you. And it's just a way of them, the person feeling more confident about who they are. And so that's when I do the black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to capture them as they are. And then every once in a while, I'll tell them to just kind of look down, give me a serious look. And I'm going for that mood. And those are the ones that I usually convert to black and white. But I always shoot in color, because that's what I'm aiming for, kind of get like a soft grin, just them as they are. But I'll go for that. Once I get to know them and see certain features that I like, I'll pose them and I'll shoot it with the intention of converting it to black and white. And most often, you know, they turned out to be good photos.
Yeah, they're like I said, you did that one, and I saw it, and I was like, that's why when we had you do our photos, I was like, I want some black and white ones.
Yeah, and see, with her, we're on our way up to the studio.
Yeah,
and so with her dress and just her outfit and having to see her, and I saw that stairway, I stopped her. It's like, can we do something here? Because I saw it right away, and that's when I got those photos. But it was actually on our way up to your studio.
Okay.
there you go. Yeah. So what's your what's your kind of go-to to get the client, you know, comfortable to take the photos and not being so self-conscious and so stiff?
Yeah, so that's very common, that everybody shows up nervous, especially if it's their first photo shoot.
Yeah.
You know, they're kind of stiff, nervous. And I just spark a conversation with them. It's like, do you take selfies? And like, yeah, I take selfies. Like, it's the same thing, but instead of the cell phone, it's going to be my camera.
and I'm holding it. You're not.
Yeah, and I'm holding it. So, and I'm going to help you pose. And I give them, you know, a quick primer on posing. It's all about shapes and curves. So I kind of do my thing, you know, posing. It's like, but don't worry, I'm going to help you throughout the process. I said, so for now, just stand there, relax. Let me check the lighting, and, you know, I'll take a few photos, and then I'll show them those photos. And that's when they see them and they start getting more comfortable. And so from that, I learned that once they see themselves, I kind of caught them off guard. They weren't expecting the photo, right? So I'm telling them, I'm testing the lights, and I take the photos. Once they see them and they start feeling more comfortable, that's where I got the idea to use a monitor that I connect to my camera. And so it's almost like a live view. They're seeing what I'm seeing. And so a lot of times I tell them, it's like, this is your mirror. Just look at yourself, pose, fix your hair. And as they're doing that, I'm taking photos. So I kind of catch them a little bit off guard. They're not necessarily focused on the camera, kind of like what we're talking about earlier, where it's, you know, we're doing interviews or we're doing the podcast. We kind of get nervous.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like same thing with photos. And so what I'm trying to do is kind of distract them a little bit so I can get their true nature. So they're relaxed. And that's where once I take the photos, we'll go through them and see them. And they're like, oh, I like that. And so we'll redo it, but now a little bit more posed, more planned. And we'll fix everything, the hair, pose, and everything. And then we'll take the photo. And so that's kind of like how I get them going. And with that, using the monitor, I've had a lot of clients who's like, I like the experience. That really helped a lot. Yeah. You know, I plan to book you more often, or you know, bring family and you know, kind of
word of mouth.
Word of mouth, yeah. But they enjoyed the experience. Nice. That's what it's all about too. Where they're relaxed, they enjoy it, and you capture that.
Yeah. Nice. So being in West Texas, what are some of the challenges in photography and I guess videography that kind of isn't spoken about enough, or just in general?
Here in West Texas, I think the weather.
No way.
It's a dust storm waiting to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing with doing photos out in location. It's too many elements, whether it's the wind, of course, the sun, the dust, and the rain. It's so unpredictable. And as a matter of fact, you saved me one time. We had planned to shoot on location. It started raining. That's when I called you last minute. It's like, yeah, it's available. I'm like, yes. So you saved me on that one. And so that's why I point to, and that's why I prefer doing a studio photo shoots, because you control everything, especially the lighting and the posing. But there's some on occasion that they want them on location. And I've learned to use the elements in your favor, especially like the wind. So here in studio, we kind of have to create artificial wind when you're going to get, the wavy hair or the dress. So if there's a little bit of breeze, you can use it to your favor to use that. But other than that, there's so many elements in nature that you really can't control. And then, of course, being limited with locations, like we said, clients want rivers, lakes, greenery, and you're like,
yeah, like we don't have that out here.
If you can find it, let me know. I'll go and take the photos.
So kind of in this community, we'll say community, but there's that buzzword about community over competition. What does that mean to you? Like that buzzword, community over competition. Like, what does that mean to you?
Well, it should mean that we should all work together, right?
Yeah.
As professionals, it should be a community where we all come together and help each other out. But most often than not, human nature gets in the way, and it's more competitive, which, it's out there. It's a business. But I always go back to, being there at the border. When I first started, I wasn't necessarily, I didn't consider myself a professional photographer, but I did have all the gear where I was doing it as freelancing. But then there was those photographers that would cover events, and that was their profession. And so every Christmas, how companies will have corporate Christmas parties, and for business owners, especially photographers, there's nobody out there that's going to invite you. It's just going to be yourself if you have a Christmas party. And so they're in at the border in Acuña, during Christmas, they would get together. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was pretty neat. And so on one occasion, they invited me, and I felt honored. I'm like, I didn't consider myself at the time a professional photographer, but they saw my work, what I was doing, and they invited me. They incorporated me into their Christmas party. And I told my wife, like, that's pretty cool. And I tried to do that in Del Rio. It didn't work out. There's a lot of competition, a lot of envy. And I'm like, oh, what can we learn from that group?
Yeah.
And so it should be like that. We're a community of professionals where you should, help each other out. And so arriving here in West Texas, I was aiming at that, kind of building that community. At the time, I didn't know anybody here. And then, now I'm starting to know different photographers, videographers. Not so many. I think there's more photographers.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I met you two at the studio, and this past Christmas, that's what I was wondering. Like, and I started looking around. Like, is there any associations or any groups of photographers? And the few that I've met is pretty much they're on their own. But I think that the goal of us now as professionals is to, push more for a community where we can help each other out
and collaborate.
Collaborate, exactly, because I don't. Everybody has their own clients. Everybody has different styles of photography. I get asked about maternity, which I've done a few, because they asked for my style. They didn't want maternity per se, as how you see maternity as a style, or newborn, which I completely stay away from. I don't do any newborn, and so I respect those that do newborn. That's a complete that's art to me. That's very creative, and I have high respect for that. So I wouldn't go out and try and do newborn. just for the sake of, making an extra dollar or taking work away from somebody. I'm like, to me, that's where competition comes in. It's not my strength. It's not my style. I'm gonna stay away from it. You don't have to do everything that's photography. And so there's other branches that that they've asked me about, and I tell them that's not my style. Whether it's product photography as well, I've gotten asked a lot. It's like I could do it, but that's not my style. It's like, so I prefer hire so and so. That's what they do. They're dedicated to doing that, and so that's where community comes in, because you're referring somebody else that you respect because that's their profession, and you're not trying to take away from them.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. But a lot of times, like I said, human nature gets in the way, and you think, oh, I'm a photographer, I'll do it. I'll charge you less than so-and-so. And that's kind of like where things kind of break apart.
Yeah. No, I understand that. And, I'm really hoping that this holiday season we can have a couple holiday parties for photographers here in the studio.
Oh yeah, that's that's where you build the community.
Balcony too. We have a balcony.
We need somebody to take a lead, and maybe that's your role.
We fully intend to have some, either maybe a Friendsgiving, maybe a Christmas party, maybe both, depending. But absolutely, I want to have that. Like, I want to again have this community where we all get to kind of collaborate, and we can compete here and there, but it doesn't have to always be about competition. Like, it doesn't have to be doesn't have to be your driving factor and driving force behind it. I think if we build each other up, it just makes everything better.
It does, and that's the whole goal. I think that as a profession, it builds everybody up instead of tearing each other down.
Instead of everybody racing to the bottom.
Exactly, and that's what happens a lot of times. And I think the ones that lose on that end is the clients, because quality also kind of takes a hit. Yeah.
So, Auden, I'm super excited that we're going to collaborate with you and do a workshop soon. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah. So again, about building communities, I don't mind sharing what I've learned. If there's somebody that can take what the knowledge or my experience and if they can use it, then I'm willing to share it. I know I didn't have anybody back then. So if I can be that person to somebody that's wanting to start or wanting to improve, then I'm glad to share what I have, my knowledge or my experience.
Yeah, we're excited to provide that to our photography community, and we're excited that you're going to be one of our first teachers. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, and then we'll hopefully kind of do some more events along the lines and do some other things. Like I said, get some holiday parties down and just really
a camera exchange.
Exchange. Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad idea, right? Like if we had like a little photographer's garage sale of like, hey, this is stuff I don't need anymore, or want to switch out, or I mean that could, there's no camera store other than Lubbock.
And we talked about that. All kidding aside, we kind of go. I think everybody as a photographer, we see the YouTube videos or we see new gear coming out, and we think we're gonna need it, so we buy it just in case. Or, maybe use it once, but then it's just there stored away.
Sitting in the storage room.
Exactly. And so we all go through that. And so just imagine every photographer, all the gear that we all have that's not being used. Yeah. And so, we're not putting it out there for somebody to use it or experiment with it and learn. And so that goes to our knowledge as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
We're just sitting back there. There's a lot that we all know, but we're not sharing it or using it. And so somebody could use it. So it's all about, sharing that information.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, no. So, Auden, thank you for coming out here, and everybody don't forget to follow Auden on his Facebook, Instagram, which are.
So I go by my name, Auden Cabello. I'm on Facebook. I have my personal profile. I have my page on Instagram. Same thing. I have two accounts. One is my photography account. One is my journalism account. I'm also there on, TikTok. I think those are the main three. But yeah, most of my work, I share it on my videography, most of it on Facebook and YouTube. Photography on Instagram.
Well, yeah, don't forget to follow him. And Don't forget to follow the Downtown Studio Midland on
Absolutely.
Facebook, Instagram with Downtown Studio Midland. You can find us on the website as well, downtownstudiomidland.com, where you can see more of the studio and even rent it out if you want to try that out. But again, Auden, thank you for coming out, and thank you for sharing all your stories. They were great. And just again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, and we'll catch you on the next one.